Have you noticed in our contemporary culture that there's a trend to make any figure of note from the past a homosexual? The legendary King Arthur is the latest victim of this. According to the Welsh Council, he's included in the LGBTQ crowd because he once wore women's clothing. Of course, it would be bigoted and hateful to point out that the very reason he was wearing women's clothes in the first place was to disguise himself so he could go and see a woman. Now, once you notice this trend, you see it's everywhere. Here are a few results from a quick Google search. Apparently, the British Museum is trying to make Nelson gay. Shakespeare, too, apparently is undeniably bisexual. Further to that, Richard I, one of my predecessors there, was also apparently queer. And on top of that, Leonardo da Vinci apparently loved men, according to the BBC. Now, I have to say this because we're on YouTube and some blue-haired liberal might stumble across this video. No, I don't hate gay people. I don't wish any ill to fall upon them. But I think we can all see this is part of the driving LGBTQ agenda, which is part of the broader woke cultural takeover across the Western world. Yet I find this particularly egregious for two reasons. Firstly, these are historical figures, so none of them can answer back. Secondly, these figures are heroic in the Western tradition and henceforth have to be morphed into the warped woke ideology of today. Yet this rewriting of our past is more about the present day and the future than anything else. As Orwell wrote in 1984, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. So this is all an insidious and creeping undermining of our cultural mythology. It's sort of a death by 1,000 cuts situation. If you raise any of this in the mainstream, you'll just be called an evil, paranoid bigot. Though over the span of years and decades, we see eventually that our whole culture gets swamped in this nonsense. And then they say, what are you talking about? It's always been this way, bigot. Why don't you sit down and shut up? It's quite clear that this is all intended to undermine our traditions, our way of life, and the nuclear family on top of that. However, it is such things that actually built the tradition in the Western world. This new wokeism is something of a poison on top of that. Just take the quote I use about King Arthur at the header of my channel. Legend says that King Arthur will return Excalibur in hand when the British need him most. Why I'm using this, of course, is because it speaks to a shared spiritual understanding that's in the British identity, something that's about heroism, valour, representing what we are on a deeper level than we presently have. However, after the woke takeover, it's unlikely King Arthur will have Excalibur in hand. It's much more likely to be a certain part of the male appendage. And we all know that this sort of thing isn't going to lead to more equality, more inclusion to the utopian woke society. It's just going to destroy our own foundations like a tree that's hacking away at its own roots. As the great saying in Proverbs states, don't move the ancient boundary stone which your fathers have set up. Well, we're moving many of those stones, and much dark energy can come from that. These are just my thoughts, however, do let me know what you think down below, and do consider subscribing to the channel.